Kentucky basketball is probably going to be without two of their 3 7-footers to begin the season, and that's really not a good thing.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what is going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on in to Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, writer for Sports Illustrated for various SEC-related things. But on this podcast, we bring you all things related to Kentucky athletics. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. You can make every moment more, and right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be discussing Zvonimir Ivisic and whether or not he could have a really big role for the Kentucky Wildcats to begin the season. Comments from Coach Cal on yesterday's Pro Day lead us to believe that Bradshaw and Ugonna Onyenso will be out for at least another month. It's really not good for the Wildcats, but unfortunately, they're just simply going to have to make do of their situation. Also on today's episode, going to have takeaways from Kentucky basketball's Pro Day, and then I want to take a look at Fox Sports preseason top 25, because I think you'll be shocked to see where Kentucky is in this article that John Fanta put together. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everybody out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. If you're listening on podcast, I would really appreciate it if you followed along or subscribed there as well. If it looks like I've been bawling my eyes out for the past 2 hours, it is just simply my left contact trying to kill me. So if my eyes look bloodshot on YouTube, I apologize, but nevertheless, we ball. The question I wanted to ask on today's episode is Kentucky going to have to rely on Zvonimir Ivisic early this season? If you did not see it, Zvonimir, Big Z, is on campus as of today. Really excited to see the pictures of him and Coach Cal and him getting situated at the university. He's here, and there's been kind of a question floating around the media sphere as to whether or not Big Z is going to be eligible for this team if he's going to be approved by the NCAA. We've talked about it here on the show before, and it sounds like, just based on the way that Coach Cal has talked about him, based on the way that this coaching staff has talked about him, there may not be any sort of concern there as to whether or not he is going to be deemed eligible by the NCAA. I don't know anything. I'm just going based off what we've seen. It's been a question that's been brought up by media and by fans, and it has been not even addressed in the slightest, from what I've seen, by any of the coaching staff members. So I think that he's going to be ready to go. And to be honest with you, it's probably a really good thing, because if you watched yesterday's Pro Day, which was broadcasting on SEC Network Plus and a little bit on SportsCenter, you got to hear some really interesting comments from Coach John Calipari, and I'll read some of them here. So yesterday, Wednesday, Kentucky's Pro Day, Coach Cal was being asked about a couple different things about the team, and he was being asked about what keeps him up at night. And I believe this was before one of his quotes. He was talking about the fact that he doesn't really have a lot of healthy big men right now. And then he said on SportsCenter he has 2 big guys who are, quote, out another 5 to 6 weeks, and then another 7-footer who is going to arrive on campus tomorrow. That was Zvonimir, obviously. So what he's saying here is that Bradshaw and Ugonna Onyenso, both who suffered different foot injuries this offseason, are going to be out another 5 to 6 weeks starting now. So that's a really big concern for the Wildcats, and Calipari also said during his interview, you must have rim protection. If you don't have post presence, your team's a fraud. Now, maybe you can sneak by, but to win 6 without rim protection, that is really, really difficult. Whenever he says win 6, I believe he means win 6 in the NCAA tournament. So we're sitting here heading into the beginning of the season, heading into Big Blue Madness, which, by the way, Zvonimir is going to participate in. And then the first couple of exhibition games, understanding now that 2 of your best front court players are going to be out just about another month. And so you look ahead to where may this fall on the schedule. Cal alluded to where it may fall on the schedule whenever they get back. He said 2 of them are out for 5 to 6 weeks. That's going to be an issue. By that time, we're in December. And if you look at Kentucky basketball schedule up until December, these are the games that Aaron Bradshaw and Hugo are probably going to miss. New Mexico State, Texas A&M Commerce, Kansas, Stonehill, St. Joseph's, Marshall, Miami, and then December 2nd is UNC Wilmington. That's the first game in December. That's at 4 o'clock on the SEC Network. I'm not quite sure if we are going to see Kentucky wait the entire month of November to put these guys back out on the court. You could very well see them wait longer. You could very well see them get into a game like maybe against Miami on November 28th in the ACC-SEC Challenge. I'm not quite sure when these guys are going to be officially back. But what I can tell you is this. Whenever they do return, it's not like you're going to be able to just plug and play these guys. Now, you go maybe a little bit more comfortably, but as far as Aaron Bradshaw goes, you're arguably one of your better front court players and a definite feature in your power forward rotation, if not the starter there, depending on how Trey Mitchell shakes out. But you're going to have to get these guys comfortable in practice before you can really send them out there and get them ready for a game. So I just want everybody to understand, and I think a lot of you out there already know this, just because he says early December doesn't exactly mean we're going to see Aaron Bradshaw and Ugonna and Onyenso as the starting power forward and center on December 2nd against UNC Wilmington. That's not necessarily the case. It could happen, but I'm leaning towards no based on the fact that you have to go out there, get your guys prepared, get them comfortable in practice with their teammates, and then you can go and put them in a game, a legitimate game situation. So where does that leave us? Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here to begin the show. Zvonimir Ivisic, that is officially on campus, the 7'2" Croatian big man. He can shoot the three. He can handle the ball. He's probably not the most dominant player inside the paint, but he has excellent touch, and he is just a very special prospect. He's going to have to carry the load early for Kentucky. Unless Trey Mitchell is just the guy that you play at the 5, and then you just hope Jordan Burks works out at power forward at different times, which you can absolutely do if you would feel like it. I mean, he played well during the pro day. He looks a little bit better. He looks like a different player out there. You can do that, but if you don't, you have to even if you don't play Zvonimir, even if you don't start him at the 5 and you start Trey Mitchell at the 4, you have to rotate him in. You can't just keep Mitchell out there for 40 minutes. You can't just have a 6'9" guy as your primary paint rim defender for the majority of the Kansas game. You have to be able to switch it up just a little bit, throw something at them that they have not seen before. Throw it at the Jayhawks. I mean, it's going to be very, very important that Kentucky utilizes their rotation properly with Zvonimir, a 7'2" player in the rotation. I really do hope Kentucky does not put him on the back burner. I really do hope that he gets comfortable in practice over these next couple of weeks. He's able to kind of gel with this team. The chemistry that this team already has, considering most of these guys are very, very young, is really impressive to me. We talked about that after the Global Jam, of just how comfortable these guys look with each other. They looked comfortable on Pro Day. This team's going to score a lot of points. Let's put Big Z out there. I think he's going to have to contribute early for Kentucky, which is something I don't think I would have said just a couple of weeks ago. So if you have any thoughts on this, you can leave it in the YouTube comments below. Talk to me about Bradshaw, about Onyenso. I know some of you have thoughts about Bradshaw ever playing in blue and white for the Wildcats. I'm not quite there yet, but if you have any questions, leave them in the YouTube comments below, or you can hit me on the socials at Locked On UK. I want to dive further into some takeaways from Kentucky's Pro Day because we have some really interesting things to get to here. Although you didn't really see a whole lot from the scrimmage, I think that there were some individuals that played better than I anticipated. Before I dive into that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. You've got really simple tools like screening questions to make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to, but faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, continuing along here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. If you have not subscribed to the show already, please go ahead and do so, whether you are listening on podcast or on YouTube. I would also encourage you to go check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Andy, Pat, and Isaac Shade, they do great work over there. Phenomenal stuff, getting ready for the season. I mean, it is just an excellent listen every single day. You can find them on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. On Wednesday night, Kentucky basketball hosted their annual basketball pro day, where NBA scouts from all 30 NBA teams came to Lexington to get a sneak peek of the Wildcats. Writer at Wildcats Today, alongside myself, Andrew Stefaniak, wrote his takeaways from what he saw during Kentucky's pro day. He was able to step in. He was able to also text with me throughout the evening to kind of give me updates on what was going on with certain players. And we'll probably have Andrew on here on the show in the next few days to kind of give us some more in-depth commentary on what he saw for the Wildcats on Wednesday night. These were some of his takeaways, and after getting to watch a little bit of it myself, I agree with Andrew on this. So let's walk through here with this article that he released on Wildcats Today, his takeaways and thoughts from Pro Day. Ugonna, Onyenso, and Aaron Bradshaw both went through pregame warmups, but did not participate in anything else. On the broadcast, Coach Cal said these two would be out to another 5 to 6 weeks. That was his first takeaway, Andrew's first takeaway. And he and I were texting back and forth about how they were out there. They weren't really doing a whole lot. They were not going to participate except just a little bit of a shoot around just for fun. They both don't have any sort of boot or strap on either of their feet. Obviously, Ugonna injured before the Global Jam. Aaron Bradshaw had to undergo foot surgery. Both of them look fine. I did not see anything necessarily negative about them. Andrew said that they both moved well. Didn't hit all their shots, but they both moved well. So I've got no issue with what I saw. If you give them a little bit more time, I think to get healthy here before the beginning of the season, and then you can, like I said at the beginning of the show, implement them in practice, run them in, get them ready for Miami, UMC, Wilmington, somewhere around there. I think that would be really good. I think that they're on pace for that. They looked good. They did not look hurt to me. So that's the big takeaway there to begin these takeaways. Coach Calipari then discussed how Zvonimir Ivisic will be in Lexington tomorrow. The first thing that stood out during the drills was how fast DJ Wagner was. During some warm-up sprints, he finished first each time, and that's something that's really refreshing to see. When you talk about DJ Wagner, and this is something that I've seen a little bit recently, you don't necessarily mention the speed or like he's not like a phenomenal like elite athlete. Obviously, he's a great athlete, but as far as like explosiveness, like jumping ability and things like that, he's not necessarily like elite, like the best of the best. But you like the feel general vibe that he has about him, the confidence. You really, really like the scoring ability inside the arc. I think during the pro day, and this is something that Andrew also noted, he really showed his ability to distribute the basketball, which is something that has been, I think, a very important point of emphasis for NBA scouts. Is can he, if he's going to be a point guard, can he kind of move out of that combo guard role and show his ability to pass the rock? And I absolutely thought that he did that during the pro day. I mean, the whole point of pro day is to show off what you've got and what you're able to do. And I think DJ Wagner was a standout. I thought that he played really well. And the fact that you get to see the speed, like I was saying a second ago, he's not necessarily tabbed like the best athlete, but when you get to see things like this, whenever he was quick up and down the court, very refreshing to see. Curious to see how it plays out during in-game situations. Andrew also noted Antonio Reeves, DJ Wagner, Rob Dillingham, and Reed Shepherd all shot the ball well. I want to also point this out because I don't think that Andrew pointed this out in his article. Joey Hart actually shot the ball really, really well, and some other scouts and some other media members pointed out that there was a lot of attention on Joey Hart at the end of Pro Day, saying, "Who's number 20? We need to talk to him. We need to get some more information about number 20." I told you guys whenever he committed to Kentucky This guy is a bucket getter. He is a shooter. And man, he really showed out in his action during Pro Day. I hope Joey Hart is able to kind of show his abilities off the bench for Kentucky. Heck, they may need it. They may need to slide guys down to the 3 and the 4, and they may need Joey Hart to get some valuable minutes at 6'5" at the wing or at the 2. I hope he's able to get those opportunities. Another player that I really hope is able to get those opportunities is Jordan Burks. We were really high on Jordan Burks whenever he was first committed to the Kentucky Wildcats. I think we were actually in his hype video before he committed to UK, just talking about how he is, I think, better than what his overall ranking on 24/7 Sports and on On3 and on Rivals. He's better than that. He's I think, better than that whenever you actually watch his tape and watch what he's capable of. I think that he can develop into a shooter at 6'9", very comfortable handling the ball in his high school film, and whenever I believe he was on OTE as well. You got to see a little bit more built. I think during his time with the strength and conditioning program, it served him well. I think that's something that Andrew noted as well here. Jordan Burks may have to play a decent amount of power forward, more than maybe Kentucky wants to at the beginning of the season, and I really do hope that he's able to step up and he's able to execute. He was somebody that we kind of criticized during the Global Jam, or at least at the end of it, saying he's a player that you watched and saw he's going to need a little bit more time. He's going to need some months to develop here, and maybe this first season's going to serve him well as far as his process through Kentucky's program. Man, he may be ready to play right now, and Kentucky may just simply have to play him, and I really do hope that he's able to kind of show his stuff, because I think he's got something there. I think he's got some special in him. So Justin Edwards and Trey Mitchell also look good shooting the ball early in the drills. Andrew noted Edwards' jump shot looks much more crisp right now than it did in Canada. That's something that Andrew Stefaniak notes also. And that's something that's been a little bit of a concern here whenever we've talked about Edwards at this small forward position. He started the Global Jam off slow statistically on the offensive end of the floor, but he fought through it, and you got to see him make some really solid catch-and-shoot threes, some pull-up threes as well during the Global Jam as it went on. Maybe we get to see Justin develop a little bit more of a well-rounded offensive game than we saw in the Global Jam. Maybe we see that at the beginning of the year. I would love to see this kid show his stuff, because I've heard some really, really good things about him projecting out to the NBA as a possible first overall pick. I want to see it. I really want to see it from Justin, because I know he's got it in him. And for Stefaniak to note here that his shot looks more crisp than it did in Canada is very positive to see. Let's see. Edwards has gotten to the rim in many creative ways. You can see that in highlights as well, by the way, if you've been watching on social media. Early in the scrimmage, he missed a layup he should have made and then made a dunk. He needs to finish plays like this in the season, but he looks great getting to the cup. That's what Stefaniak had to also say about Edwards. He's got a well-rounded game. I just want to see him shoot the outside shot a little bit better. Rob Dillingham, how about it? Dillingham has looked even more shifty than anticipated, scoring around the rim and also making some mid-range jumpers. That's something that Andrew noted as well. That's something that you saw from numerous people that attended Pro Day and people that obviously got to watch it on television. Rob Dillingham had some really nice passes, looked great with the ball in his hands, looks more comfortable, and I think that that's the biggest thing here. You saw a lot of great chemistry between Kentucky's kids during the round robin in Canada. But man, Rob Dillingham being able to get even more comfortable in this system, he could be a really big-time player in some early important games for Kentucky. You're looking at that Kansas game, Miami, even Marshall, could be pretty big for UK. Let's see here. Midway through the scrimmage, Adu Thiera walked off the court with a visible limp. He rolled his ankle, grabbing a rebound. Not much long-term concern here, but something to monitor. That's what Andrew texted me earlier, like midway through the scrimmage. I think Thiera is going to be fine. Let's see. Trey Mitchell looks really solid rebounding right now, both on offense and defense. You can see that in highlights as well. This will be big for the Cats if Onyenso and Bradshaw are out long-term. Mitchell seems to have no problem with rebounding. He seems to have no problem scoring around the rim. I want to see him against a legitimate contender like Kansas with Hunter Dickinson. I think Trey Mitchell can be just fine. I think that he can be just fine with the Wildcats. It's the rim protection that maybe concerns me a little bit at 6'9". I think he's going to be able to get his. I think the team's going to be able to score. If Trey Mitchell can lock it down even somewhat decently, you have to feel good about Kentucky's chances against a team like Kansas early in the year. Let's see here. Jordan Burks looks a lot better today than he did in Canada. That's what Andrews noted that we just talked about here. Reed Sheppard has once again proven that he is much more than a shooter, as he has played suffocating defense and passed the ball well. He may be one of the best off-ball defenders that Kentucky has on roster in terms of being anticipatory and just really having a really good knowledge of what his role is as a defender. You've got a couple of guys like that on this roster, and Sheppard fights hard, man. He fights hard, as do several other players. Edwards was also another player that fought really hard during the scrimmage, just to note. Joey Hart made a few contested threes and could be another guy who could help this team in a pinch. I agree with Andrew there. And then his final thought, I thought the team shot the basketball well and rebounded well, which were the two things we wanted to see on Pro Day. Andrew and I talked about this on a phone call before this started, and that we agree. Shooting the basketball, rebounding, playing team defense during the scrimmage was another, but you weren't really going to see a lot of hard defense during the scrimmage, I don't think, even if you asked for it. So I think that's okay there. The real concern for this team are the timetables for Bradshaw and Onyenso, and they missed a few layups around the rim that need to be made, and that was Andrew's final thought there. I agree with everything that he has to say. Getting those two guys back is going to be really, really big for Kentucky. If you've got any thoughts on Kentucky basketball's Pro Day, you can leave it in the YouTube comments below. All right, I want to take a look at Fox Sports Top 25 here for the Kentucky Wildcats, because Kentucky's not included from John Fanta. And I want to kind of dive into maybe why and also explain why they should be here in just a second. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. You can snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 win or lose in bonus bets. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, from player props to spreads, over-unders, and more. So you need to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and continue along with this phenomenal NFL season. That is FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, wrapping up the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Fox Sports has released their top 25 rankings for the preseason. John Fanta, somebody that I'm actually in a couple of group chats with over on Instagram, wrote this article. He is a play-by-play guy for Fox Sports. Also does a little bit of NBA, like G League action stuff as well, if I'm not mistaken. He put out his preseason top 25 poll. You've got Kansas, Duke, Purdue, Michigan State. Those four teams have been consistently at the top of everybody's top 25. But you go down the list here. Let's see, Marquette and Creighton at 5 and 6. Let's see, UConn at number 8. Arkansas at number 9, a team that I think should be ranked lower. Florida Atlantic at number 11. I think that's about fair for them. San Diego State at number 12. Let's see here. Tennessee at number 15. A&M at 16. Arizona at 17. You've got St. John's at number 20, who just barely made ESPN's preseason top 25. Is USC on here? No, you've got North Carolina, Baylor, USC at number 24. Illinois at 25. And then in the just missed category, you've got Wisconsin, Colorado, UCLA, Boise State, and Memphis. At no point in this article is Kentucky ranked. They are not in the just missed category. They are not in this top 25 whatsoever. Okay. All right. I think that we sometimes get a little bit too worked up about how preseason projections are thrown out before the beginning of the year. And we on the show like to critique them mostly for fun, because I think I try and say this every time we talk about this. We don't know. We don't know how bracketology is going to pan out. Joe Lenardi's tossing out his bracketology in the middle of the summer, just like, here's how next year's field projects out. And I guarantee you, like 10 to 15 of those teams are not going to even be, maybe even anywhere close to the NCAA tournament. You don't really know until you get to see teams a month or two into the season how they are performing. I think that it is fun to do projections. I'm not saying you can't do projections because this is this, that, and the other, and it stinks. I would actually love, personally, to be an AP voter. If there's anybody affiliated with the Associated Press, call me. I would take it extremely seriously. I'm dead serious. But if you are here with me looking at this top 25, do not be extremely disgusted. Don't be disgusted at Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Don't be disgusted at ESPN's preseason top 25. We can have comments about it. We can have opinions about it, but just don't sit here and freak out because it doesn't matter. You're going to get 3 weeks into this year. Kentucky's going to have beaten Kansas or whoever, and then the people that are writing these same articles are going to put out new articles, and you are going to have essentially forgotten about their preseason projections. I'm sure they will have already forgotten about some of them as well. It's all content. It all is what it is. With all of that being said, I do just want to kind of sit here for a moment. Why would Kentucky not be ranked in the preseason top 25? Well, it would have to do largely with what the team accomplished last year. They were a plus 20 win team that was a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. Didn't really do a whole lot. They lost Oscar Tshiebwe, arguably the best player on the team for the past couple of years. That's what they lost out on. I think that you can't base this year's top 25 on last year's successes. That's why I'm so skeptical about teams like FAU. I don't really know if they're going to be able to replicate those close wins. I don't know if they're going to be able to go 35-3 again. I think they're a good team. I think they're a top 25 team for sure. Are they a top 10 team? Are they a top 8 team, which is where they were, I think, at the beginning of the offseason? I don't know. Look at Kentucky's roster, though, this year. You bring in a number of 5 stars. You bring in, I believe, 10 new freshmen. The youth there is concerning. The talent should be tantalizing for anybody that wants to put out a preseason projection. We know what John Calipari is capable of with a very young and talented team. That regular season is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a highlight reel for the Wildcats. You also have a couple of very experienced pieces that are going to be vital for this year's team. Antonio Reeves, one of the best shooters in all of college basketball, period. And then you've got Trey Mitchell, a great stretch four and a good three-point shooter and great distributor as well as a good power forward as well. This is a top 25 team. They just are. I think that they are. You cannot look at last year and say, oh, well, they won 23, 22 games and they lost Tshiebwe. They're not a top 25 team. I'm not accusing John Fanta of not doing his homework here. Obviously, thought is put into that. I respect Fanta as a play-by-play announcer and as a media figure. I think Kentucky should be in this top 25. I think they should. I think they're one of the best they are one of the 25 best teams in America. So I do disagree with excluding them altogether. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if you've got any thoughts on that, you can leave it in the YouTube comments below. And I think that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.